The buzzword of the year in mortgage land has been the temporary interest rate buy down. Let's talk about what it is and if it actually makes a lot of sense for you. So the way a temporary interest rate buy down works is typically the seller is covering the cost of it. Sometimes you as the buyer can cover it, but it's exactly as it sounds. Money is being put towards temporarily buying down your interest rate. And they come in different forms. There's like a 1-year buy down where your interest rate is 1% lower for the first year than your regular rate, and then it goes back to your regular rate. There are 2-1 buy downs where it's 2% lower for the first year, then 1% lower, then back to your regular rate. There are 3-2-1 buy downs. There's all the combinations. But for example, let's say you're going to lock in at a 6.5% interest rate for your regular rate, and you're doing a temporary interest rate buy down, and you're doing a 2-1 buy down. So that means in year 1, you are paying as if your mortgage is at a 4.5. For year 2, you're paying as if your mortgage is a 5.5. And then once you get into year 3, now why these have gotten really popular is that rates have not cooled down as much as people would have hoped. They're actually not super high. They're right around normal in this kind of 6 to 6.5 range, but housing prices have gone up significantly. So affordability is still a major issue. So while the 6% interest rate may not be the big issue, a $450,000 average purchase price in your area is creating really too high of a payment for a lot of people. So what some people are opting to do is utilize their seller credit to do a temporary interest rate buy down. So that way in the first couple of years, their payment is significantly lower, because you can typically get a much lower interest rate for just a couple of years though with a temporary interest rate buy down versus what you would have to pay to try to get that rate as your permanent rate. Sometimes legally you can't even pay the amount that it would take you to get to that 4.5 or 5.5, beyond the 6.5. So the temporary interest rate buy down does give you a lower payment for a few years, and it can help relieve some of that payment amount. But I warn everyone, it's only for a couple of years, and then your payment is going to go right back up. And the real question is, are you happy with the payment in year 3 or year 2 and on? The toughest part about a temporary interest rate buy down is you are now making payments that could be $200 to $300 less per month than what your regular payment is going to be, and you get kind of comfortable paying that lower amount, and then suddenly it feels like the rug is ripped out from underneath of you, and now you've got this large payment, which is actually your regular payment, you just haven't had to make it yet. So a temporary interest rate buy down can definitely save you money for a couple of years, but it is not always mentally your best plan. You have to really be prepared for that payment to go back to its regular amount. So you have to strategize what you want that fixed interest rate to be for year 2 or 3 on. So I have seen some that have refinanced lately where they thought, well, I'm not going to buy down my interest rate at all, and they locked it like an 8% interest rate. So they've paid this lower amount for a while, but now their payment, they're worried because their payment is significantly larger than what they've been paying. So we've refinanced them to get them into regular rates. When you refinance though, you've got closing costs all over again. You may have lender fees that you pay. If you're in South Carolina, for example, you've 100% got attorney fees that you're paying again. You're replenishing your escrow accounts. And a lot of that you can finance in, but then that's your equity that you're financing. So when we do the strategy of a temporary interest rate buy down, every lender may do it differently. I typically talk to my clients about, hey, let's maybe still permanently buy down our rate some to get to about national rates, and then use the seller credit to do the temporary interest rate buy down. That way, when that temporary interest rate period ends, you are still at normal rates unless they've significantly gone down, which over the last 2.5 years, they have not. So most of my people that I put into temporary interest rate buy down programs, when their temporary period ends, they're still going to be about where everybody else is. So now they're not worried about refinancing and paying. So it's all really strategy driven. Maybe you're not going to be in the home that long, and so you're going to utilize that temporary interest rate buy down to keep the lower payments, and then you're going to be moving soon. So your concern is not about refinancing because you're not going to be in the home long enough for that to make sense. Maybe you are going to be in the home for a long time, but you still want to have those lower payments temporarily, and then you're going to refinance possibly. The other strategy I talk to a lot of people about is, okay, so if you're saving $200 a month on your mortgage for a year or 2 years or whatever, you can just go live like you have an extra $200, or you can use that $200 to your advantage. You can invest it, like your high yield savings accounts or your stocks, bonds, whatever you use. You could then use it to really funnel down debt. I tell everyone, if you have credit cards, car payments, any of that, you can use that money to start funneling that down. That way, when your payment comes back to normal, maybe now you have $200 less in credit card debt that you're having to pay every month. So it all levels back out. But what I don't recommend is using a temporary interest rate buy down to magically have $100 to $200 extra a month to just go ball out, essentially. It's not really the strategic way to use it. So temporary interest rate buy downs, again, can typically be covered by your seller credit, or buyers can pay for it sometimes on their own. It can be a really good strategy. It can get you a lower payment for a short amount of time. But again, you have to be mentally ready for what happens when it ends. If you have any questions about these or your scenario or how to use your seller credits, feel free to reach out.